Hello and welcome to the Film Pulse podcast. This is episode number 362. My name's Adam Patterson. With me today we got Kevin Rakestraw. Hey, Kevin.
Hey. Hi.
How you doing?
Yeah.
Keeping it real?
I have no idea how to answer that question. You know what I mean? I think it's just now.
Absolutely, I know what you mean. This week on the show, we'll be taking a look at Tyresha Poe's Selah and the Spades. We'll also be going over what we've been watching on the watch list and new releases on VOD and Blu-ray. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Please remember to review us on iTunes if you get a moment. That'd be super helpful. There will be a new Ryan Watches a Movie this week, just an FYI. The new episode of Saved by the 90s should be dropping this week as well. I'm not quite done with the edit on that one yet, but I'm hoping to have it out this week. I apologize for releasing last week's Ryan Watches a Movie a day late, but I literally forgot that it was Thursday. That's just how it is. Like, I realized it at like 10 o'clock on Thursday night, and I'm like, oh shit. I didn't even edit it. Like, I didn't even have the edit done. So I was like, okay, well, I guess that's coming out a day late.
Unbelievable.
That's just the world we live in now. Like,
yeah.
Every day's the same.
Everyone's behaving like me now.
It's insane. It's just crazy times. Let's talk about some Selah and the Spades. I have a synopsis here. Paloma, the new girl at an esteemed prep school, is drawn into the daily aggressions of warring senior class factions. She joins the Spades and becomes friends with the Spades leader, an enigmatic and scheming cheerleader named Selah. As I mentioned, this is written and directed by Tyresha Poe. This is now available on Amazon Prime, so if you have an Amazon Prime account, you can watch this for free. It's included in your membership. Kevin, I think we'll get started with you. What were your initial thoughts on Selah and the Spades?
Selah and the Spades is like a lot of movies where there's a decent amount in it that I appreciate and I can point to and be like, that is a good aspect of this movie. But with that being said, like the overall experience of it and like the storyline really just doesn't really do much for me.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of like the filmmaking and the performances, I think are good and enough for me as like a debut to keep an eye on to see what Poe does down the road. But in terms of like the storyline, the narrative that's here, I mean, it's intriguing from the outset. I like this idea of 5 factions running this like boarding school, and each one, you know, they're all introduced. They get their little introduction and what they handle business wise in this boarding school. So I enjoyed the setup, but like the actual, like what transpires from that point on, just I wasn't feeling it. You know, it wasn't in my lane.
No, I agree. I feel like this is a story that may have worked better as a TV series. I think that you look at what Tyresha Poe's done here, and she's done a really great job of world building in this. I agree with you. I liked the idea of the 5 factions and how they sort of secretly run things, and each faction has their own specialty. Like, for instance, the Spades, they were the ones who ran the drug trade in the school. I liked that, and how each one had their own, you know, thing that they did. They were sort of themed. Like the Spades were like the cheerleaders, and then you had the Bobbies who were like the art, the drama kids. And I thought that was really cool. And I was reading a little bit about the inspiration behind this movie and stuff, and she said that she didn't really know how to write a script or anything, so she sort of just wrote them out as short stories. And she wrote a whole bunch of short stories involving different people and situations and conflicts at this school. So presumably she wrote a whole bunch of different, you know, plots that revolve around this school. And I was just thinking, man, this probably would have worked really well as a TV series, where you could have like each episode focus on a different faction, because I thought that was one thing that this was lacking a little bit. You know, they talk so much about the 5 factions, yet you only get to really see the Spades and the Bobbies, and then the other factions pretty much take a back seat.
Yeah, which I'm glad that you pointed that out, because that was one of the things that, like, it is really, really great world building, but at the same time, you know, some of these other factions, like they're introduced at the beginning, and then they're kind of like never really talked about. And to the point where I'm like, halfway through the movie, I was kind of like, what are the 5 factions again?
Yeah. I either forgot or didn't know like what each of them did. Like, cause some of them, cause you know, the Spades make sense. Like they're the ones who are like the drug dealers in the school, and that's how they make their money. And then I'm thinking about like the Bobbies, like I guess they make money through doing these shows and stuff, like putting on these plays. But then I was thinking, like, if these are like school events, like how are they making money? I mean, are the Spades the only faction that like actually earn a living with? Like, I'm not sure. There's a lot of questions I had around this.
Yeah, but I do think that I'm pretty sure that they were answered at the beginning, because I think during the introduction it was not only like, hey, this is what they handle, but this is what they do in terms of the school too.
Yeah.
Because I forget the one that I think it's the prefects or whatever, like kind of keep the headmaster at bay or whatever.
Yeah, they're the ones who like wheel and deal with like the school administration and stuff. Yeah, they all have a purpose. They all do their own thing, but I felt like it was just, I was kind of hoping for more, because the only time you really see the other factions is during like the kind of meetings that they have, where they bring them all together, and they allude. It's also interesting, and this goes along with the world building. They talk about this, you know, event that happened several years prior that I guess caused this giant rift between all the factions. And at one time, it seemed like they were like at war with one another, but then they signed this truce after this event occurred. And I was kind of hoping that maybe something like that would happen in this movie, where we would see more of the factions and like, what does that look like? Like what, because at the end of the day, these are like 17-year-old kids, you know, and so it's like,
who drafted up the treaty?
Yeah. When they're at war, what does that look like? Like what kind of craziness is happening there? Because is it like physical violence? Are they like sabotaging each other?
Based on what you see Selah do, I think there's a good bet there's some violence. Because she pretty much runs this like, you know, the head of like the mafia.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she means business.
Yeah, one of the things that I found a little bit refreshing with this movie is that she's not an inherently likable character. And she's not designed to be necessarily a likable character. It's sort of presented like almost like a gangster movie, where she is obsessed with power and she's willing to do anything to retain that power, and she's willing to crush anyone, even those closest to her, if she feels that they're threatening her power. And I actually found that to be a bit refreshing, where she's not a super sympathetic character.
No. And I think the Lovely Simone, who plays Selah, I think to me, she was the biggest, like quote unquote bright spot in this movie. Like her performance. I mean, if you don't have that performance there, this movie just kind of falls apart.
I thought that she was quite good too, and I think she's a newcomer, right? Like this is her.
I think so, but I mean, it's you get the sense that she's been doing this for a while.
Yeah, she was quite good.
She has a couple of credits.
She was quite good. I mean, especially comparing her performance to some of the other ones. I'm not going to name names, but I think there were a few really rough performances in this, especially acting opposite her, considering she was so good in it. But yeah. I felt like there was one specific performance that felt really rough around the edges to me. It wasn't one of the main characters or anything, but it's sort of framed like your pretty standard high school movie. They bring in Celeste O'Connor as Paloma, and she's the new kid. So she's sort of the object that allows us, the audience, to learn how all of this works within this school, because she's learning how it all works too. So not only is she sort of that object to introduce us to this world, but she's also sort of the replacement for someone else who caused this big thing that happened a few years prior. And she's also sort of the one that kind of causes a rift in between the factions and acts as sort of a catalyst for what happens in the movie. She did a really good job too. I felt like maybe they could ease, I don't know. It seemed like, and maybe there was more time that passed than what I realized, but it seemed like she sort of ingratiated herself into this group really fast. Like 1 second she was this kind of timid new kid who didn't really talk to many people, and the next second she's like one of the top people in the Spades.
She's kind of running. Which I think that was when she first kind of gets introduced to what the Spades do, and that kind of like montage of, their whole drug trade and how it operates. That's when the movie for me was like really clicking. Mm-hmm. There's a couple scenes like that where everything just kind of comes together and everything just like clicks and is really, humming along. And then some of the stuff in between is a little rough around the edges. It's not a complete loss. I mean, there's, like I said, there's moments here where, you got something. You've got something.
Oh yeah.
Performances, music, the editing, the cinematography, everything's just clicking together. Mm-hmm. And then there's other times where it's just not working.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, when I first started watching this, within like the first 15, 20 minutes, I was just really not on board with it. I was just not feeling it. But then it did slowly start to win me over. And as you mentioned, I think that a lot of the aspects, a lot of the elements really do work in its favor. The cinematography, the editing, I think she uses some really creative choices in the editing and cinematography that I think make it work on this sort of fantastical level. It almost feels like it's not the way that it's shot feels much more like we're watching some sort of like Shakespearean tragedy or something, rather than this movie that's supposed to be like grounded in reality. Like it has this sort of fantasy vibe to it, and I appreciated that. But I think the final act puttered out a little bit for me as well. Like the party that they had and stuff, and the climax I thought was just a little underwhelming.
But I think, like you said, knowing that there's a bunch of short stories that went into like the preparation of making this, to me it ultimately feels like I like this world. I like the world building. I like the characters. Performances are good. Cinematography is good. Music's good. It's just this particular storyline that we ended up on. Just it didn't work for me. Maybe there was other storylines that would work a lot better for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that there probably are. And I'd like to see more. Like, I really would like to see more, because I like the location. I thought that the school looked very cool. I read that this was shot in it was an actual school in Massachusetts that they shot it in. The movie takes place in Pennsylvania, but it was an actual like prep school that was, I think, formerly I can't remember. It was like 3 different things before it was converted into a school. It was like a rich person's home at one point.
That's about right.
Yeah, I liked the school, the look of the school. I thought that all that was quite good. All the production design I thought was pretty solid too.
Yeah, and getting back to the Selah's character not really being necessarily likable, I appreciate where they took, or where she took that character sometimes. You have this as a boarding school, it's a high school, and there's a little bit of melodrama. them being teenagers and everything. But there's a couple of moments where it does like a sharp turn into where she comes off like a well-established leader of a gang or like a mafia family. Like you kind of forget that she's like 17 in this movie. Like shit gets serious sometimes.
Which is something that I kept wondering. Like, she's 17, she's a senior in high school. Like, why is she even bothering? Like when I was a senior, I was so checked out. Like I was just done. Like,
well, I think that's the thing that's different for like me and you. Like we're not from the boarding school background. Like I don't like our parents had some expectations for us, but like my parents didn't care if I went to college. They weren't hounding me. They didn't even care if I did homework. There wasn't that like insane pressure that's put on like these kids, like the rich families and everything. It's completely different to like, me and you. It's just like, let's go to Hollywood Video today. Fuck school.
Well, I don't
understand. Just do more of that, guys. Your life is so much easier.
Yeah, and I think that to go along with that and the sort of elevated expectations of the parents of the kids in the school, it is a boarding school. So there are I think, again, I didn't attend boarding school, but I have to imagine that when you're at a boarding school, your whole life is in that school. Like your whole universe is isolated to that school and the campus and the people. Like I'm just thinking about when we were in high school and how when you're in high school, like that's your world. When we look back at our time in high school, we look at the conflicts and the things that happened, and everything seems so trivial, but that's your entire life. That's your world. When you're in that situation, and I'm sure it's the same thing for people in prison, everything seems so trivial from the outside looking in, but when you're in there, that's everything. That's everything. So I guess I can sort of understand where these kids were coming from to a certain extent.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of created their own little universe to kind of keep them, I guess, entertained, occupied.
Yeah, I kind of wish our school did that. Had like the factions and stuff. It'd probably make things a lot more interesting.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I think that there's definitely something here. I will certainly be keeping an eye out on this director and anxious to see what she has coming out in the future. And again, I'll say, like, man, this is an Amazon. Amazon picked this up. I think they could easily convert this into a show. I mean, if you look at like Dear White People, for instance, like they converted that into a show, and I feel like they could do that just as probably more easily here.
Oh yeah,
and make it more interesting than what they did with that show.
Yeah, easily.
Any final thoughts on Selah and the Spades?
I pretty much agree with everything you said. The only thing that I would add to it is that in terms of like 2020 movies, it's pretty much, I'm glad that I watched it in terms of Lovie Simone's performance. I think this is, so far, I mean, we're only 4 months in, and there's not a whole lot of movies out there, but to me, it's probably one of the best performances of the year so far.
There you have it. Let's give this thing a score. Kevin, what are you going to give Selah and the Spades?
I would say like a 6.5 maybe.
I'm sitting at a 6 on this one. Again, that's on Amazon Prime, so you can give it a look on there. All right, let's take a look at some of what I'm watching. I have no idea whose turn it is. Is it your turn? I don't even know.
You go.
Okay.
You go.
I saw a few things this week. One that took up the most time was this documentary series called Time Warp: The Greatest Cult Films of All Time. The first volume of this comes out this week, I believe, on the 21st. and it's a 3-part documentary series. I watched all 3 of them, so it was like just over 5 hours. And basically, this just goes through a list of what this director deems to be the greatest cult films of all time, and that's pretty much it. Like, there's not a lot of like discussion around the sort of overarching themes of what makes a cult film. They basically look at it like movie by movie. So they'll announce a movie, and then they'll talk about it, and they'll talk about why it's considered a cult classic. But one of the big problems I had with this series was that I felt like they needed to talk about some broader topics other than just each individual movie. You know, tie them into some larger themes. They try. Yeah. So like the 3 volumes, like the first volume is called Midnight Madness. The second volume is horror and sci-fi. The third volume is comedy and camp. Now, the first volume, Midnight Madness, you would think that it's going to be talking about midnight movies, but a lot of the movies that they discuss are not midnight movies at all. Like, they talk about This Is Spinal Tap. They talk about The Big Lebowski. They talk about Rocky Horror Picture Show, which was a midnight movie, of course, and some other ones. And so the first volume doesn't really, it feels like they really kind of were stretching the whole Midnight Madness thing. Now, also, like on a technical level, this documentary is absolute garbage. Like the title card, like the title cards and stuff, the lower thirds that, you know, announce, like they'll have these lower thirds that come up that show like the person who's talking in the interview or the clip from the movie. So like they play a clip from Big Lebowski, for instance, and it'll say, you know, Big Lebowski and have the date and all that stuff. But there was like one time that I noticed that they didn't remove the title from one scene to the next. So it's a movie, it's a clip playing, and the title card is not the movie that's on display.
Oh my God.
So there's lots of like little errors. The music is all sort of just this generic royalty-free music. All the transitions and titles feel like they're kind of just stock, like Adobe Premiere, you know, built-in things. So it all looks very bad. And this is a subject, there's movies already out there. There's other documentaries that talk about cult films and midnight movies. There's more specific ones. You know, this one is sort of just a general, like, these are what we are saying are the best. And there's ones that, you know, talk about exploitation films from the Philippines, and like, there's I can't remember the name of it. There's a whole documentary about the midnight movie and the rise of the midnight movie and all of that. Now, one thing that this movie does have is a ridiculous number of subjects interviewed. I mean, I would say just look at their IMDb to go through all of them, because there's so many. Pretty much everybody you can imagine. So what they do is when they talk about a movie, they pretty much got most of the cast and crew from each movie to take part. So they got, like, again, just Big Lebowski, they got Jeff Bridges, and when they were talking about Spinal Tap, they got Fran Drescher and Michael McKean, the hosts. So the way that it's kind of structured very loosely is that they have 4 hosts. So and they're all in a room together. They sort of have a little conversation about the movie, and then they jump to like the clips and have the other interviews about the movie. So the hosts are Kevin Pollak, Joe Dante, Elena Douglas, and John Waters. It's a weird mix there, but they're all great people. And I think maybe I could have used a little bit more conversation between the 4 of them in it. And it also felt just kind of weird. I don't know. It's a sloppy documentary, but it's still pretty entertaining. So that's called Time Warp, the greatest cult films of all time. The first volume comes out Tuesday, and then the other 2 will follow. I think they're spread out like a week apart from each other, something like that. The other thing that I'll mention is this is really weird. At the end of the second volume, so like they have like a little preview of what movies are coming up in the next volume, right? So in the end of the second volume, it was like, here's what you can look forward to in volume 3. And it was all the same movies from volume 1. So like they put the wrong movies in at the end for the next volume.
Love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
I'll have a review for this up on the site by the time you're listening to this.
It kind of sounds like it's someone made or turned a letterbox list into a movie, into a documentary, in the style of like I Love the 80s.
Pretty much.
VH1.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. In my review, I said it felt like it was just felt like a longer YouTube essay, like a video essay.
Yeah.
Again, props to them for getting the names that they got. I mean,
yeah,
it's really impressive the people that they got to participate.
I don't wonder how they feel watching it though. Like the bigger name people, they'll be like, "What? This is what?
Yeah,
this is what it turned out to be."
Something tells me that most of them are not going to be watching it.
No, they don't care.
Yeah,
it's a paycheck. They got it. Oh, I watched Tiger Tail.
Oh yeah,
Alan Yang's Tiger Tail from Netflix. There.
How was this?
And this was. This is kind of a mess. It's got a really, really complex, interesting story. This guy in Taiwan, and this is the problem that I have with it. It kind of becomes a mess in terms of the flashbacks, right? So you have the Taiwanese guy played by Steve Ma from what was the show that he was always on with Alan Yang, the Alan Yang show? God damn it. I thought I had it, and now I can't remember it.
The show?
The show, Master of None.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah. It's him in present day, right? And his mother just passed away. He's just come back from Taiwan, and he doesn't really talk at all. His daughter's like giving him a ride home, and it's just a lot of like the present day. It's just him alone in his house because he lives by himself because everyone left him. And he's just kind of doing nothing. And he either like stares off there, out the window, or he's sitting down having a cup of tea, just staring straight ahead, or he's staring straight ahead after he's doing dishes. And in those times, it's when it's like, do, flashback time. And it goes back to either when he first came to America, as like a 20-year-old something, or just before then when he was in Taiwan, which is he was in love with this woman, absolutely adored her. They had a great relationship. But he wanted to get his mom out of this factory job and bring her to America. And the only way that he could do that is to essentially marry the guy that runs the factory, marry that guy's daughter. And then that guy would pay for them to go to America and everything. And he just decides like, okay, I want to do this because I want to get my mom out of there. Even though his mom's like, no, I don't really want to do that. I don't really care. So he ends up doing that. And then, of course, it kind of tracks the way you would think it would track. He tries to make it in America. The relationship falls apart, this and that. It's just a tangled mess of flashbacks, which it doesn't seem to really explore like what's at the center of his decision that kind of like just wrecks his whole life really, because he doesn't know how to like interact with like his kids or anyone, and he's just kind of alone. But it's kind of comes down to him just being this incredibly selfish man that made a really misguided decision. Like because the woman that he was obsessed with, and she loved him too, she was well off. So he could at least just like gave it a shot and like, hey, do you think we should get married? But no, he just in the cloak of night, in the cloak of darkness, just decides to run off and like, never talk to her again until like decades later. But it's a Netflix movie. And like I feel like that adequately describes it in terms of like style.
Yeah.
Like in terms of style, it's a Netflix movie. It feels very much like that, and it's just it's really bland in terms of direction. You know, the style is just, I mean, almost non-existent.
Okay.
It has like a nice complex story there, but I don't feel like it was explored deeply enough.
Yeah. That's a bummer. I was somewhat interested in that. All right, that's Tiger Tail. I saw a documentary called Other Music. This is now available. This came out this week on virtual cinemas, virtual theatrical release. But it's it's a little cheaper than some of the other ones. I think it's $11.99 or something like that. And this one's interesting because the proceeds go to support not only local movie theaters but local music stores and local record labels. So, you know, I'm familiar with Other Music. I lived in the East Village. I moved there to New York about half a year, like 6 months before Other Music closed. So, and it turned out that it was actually very close to where I moved. So I was able to visit it before it closed. And if you're not familiar, Other Music was a really, I guess, famous, certainly New York famous. It was like sort of this New York institution. It was this really amazing record store. And this documentary not only goes through the history behind the store and profiles the owners of the store and how they came to create it and how they came to open it. It was like 20 years ago. And it also follows the last week that the store was open. And they interview tons of, you know, bands that got their big break through the store, because this was the type of store where if they displayed your music, it was very likely that you were going to get noticed. So you had bands like Animal Collective and TV on the Radio and Interpol and Vampire Weekend. They all got sort of their big break through this music store. And they talked to band members and other kind of celebrity figures who were, you know, into this, fans of the store. And it also sort of looks at record store culture and what makes the record store such an important thing as far as like music discovery and connecting with other people and stuff like that. And it's a really, you know, it's a pretty straightforward documentary, but it's also quite good. I would say, even if you're not familiar with Other Music, it's still worth a look, especially if you're someone who has fond memories of visiting the record store.
Yeah. Especially if you're into these bands.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's why I sent you a message last night, because a lot of the bands that are featured in the documentary, like you and I were huge, you know, big fans of, especially you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bands featured in here that you were like really into. And their biggest year, like the year that they became like super famous, was the like between 2000 and 2002, like in that area, like right when we were getting into these types of bands and stuff. So really good music in it, of course. Lots of archival footage and stuff. Had me feeling very nostalgic. I wrote a review for this. You can read it on the site. It's up now. I talk about 3D CD in the review. Remember 3D CD?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I talk about that in my review because
it
got me thinking about 3D CD and how much I loved going there. Like I just went there all the time, and it was just such a great store. Yeah, I actually can't wait for as soon as the quarantine's lifted. I'm gonna hit up a record store. This got me like itching for some music.
I'm gonna have to, as soon as this quarantine lifts, gonna have to hit up Icos.
Is that still open?
Yeah, Icos still open.
Oh my god, that's incredible.
It's not as big. They moved. I think they moved one space over, and it's a lot like more cleaned up and smaller. Or I think he bought the one next to it, and the original one's like storage, I think.
That's incredible that place is still open.
Yeah. You remember I would go there like every week, 2 times a week.
Oh, yeah.
Gotta hit the record store, man.
Yeah. Iko's is great.
So much time spent there. Just digging crates, man. It was great because it's a small town. It's not like we get like huge, shit, tons of people handing in old vinyls.
Mm-hmm.
But you would sift through all the stuff that you just sifted through like 3 days ago.
Oh yeah.
It's not like you're just thinking, oh, maybe something new came in. No, it's the same 27 records of bread.
That was the cool thing about other music, was that it was like all stuff you probably never heard of. Like, it was all just super rare stuff, like reissues, things that are very, very obscure, and a lot of like up and coming artists and bands and stuff too. And the curation there, like, it is a small store, but the level of curation they had there, I mean, was something else.
The only other thing I watched is Samuel Fuller's The Crimson Kimono from 1959.
Oh,
a little bit of a Los Angeles noir going on. So this is, you got Glenn Corbett is the one cop, and then his partner James Shigeta is his partner. So you got a white guy and a Japanese guy as detectives partnered up in Los Angeles. And then what they're trying to do is they're trying to solve the death of a stripper, a burlesque dancer. And I mean, this movie's got a hell of an opening, which is the burlesque dancer being shot down in the street, which is the main thing about this movie. Everything that's shot outside on the streets of Los Angeles, it's phenomenal work. It's so incredible. It just looks great. I just love the feel of it, the energy of it. Everything that kind of takes place inside, like within, the hotel room or backstage or, in a house or whatever, like all that stuff is just kind of standard fare, and it's, But man, as soon as the action in this movie moves outside, oh boy, it gets kicked up a couple notches.
Nice.
So, yeah, it's got some interesting things here, because it deals with, they're back from the Korean War, and they have, you have the Japanese partner, you have the white partner, and there's some racism in there. But it's not necessarily like actual substantial racism. It's just more so a feeling of like something. He thinks something's there. He keeps essentially thinking that they're thinking something and kind of projecting racism onto him. And I don't know why I said the Korean War. It's not the Korean War. I was thinking of a movie later on that Fuller did. But yeah, I'd definitely check it out, especially if you're into deal with LA noir movies.
Mm-hmm.
This is a pretty damn good one.
Sam Fuller was always on sort of the cutting edge. Like, I think that a lot of the topics that he covered were way far ahead of their time. Like in that the cult movie documentary I watched, they talked about The Naked Kiss, which was about a prostitute who discovers that her fiance is a pedophile. And this was like from 1964. Like, it's definitely something that you just wouldn't expect.
Yeah, and like everything about the Crimson Kimono is really great, except for like the solving the murder kind of gets sidetracked by their clues lead them to this woman, Chris Downs, and so they kind of like have her because she's really the only person that can kind of like give them information. So she kind of gets latched onto them, and then it becomes this like love triangle thing, and then that kind of takes away, like it gets completely sidetracked and goes straight into all the time is focused on this love triangle. And the problem that I always have with old movies is that, I mean, this movie's a little bit better than some I've seen, but there's people where there's like literally no love interest between them, and then like you just snap your finger and all of a sudden they're in love. And it's like this huge fucking deal. Like their lives and it's just like it never works for me. It's just, it always seems so ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's like the Chris Downs character played by Victoria Shaw and James Chiquetta, like they're stuck in a room and they're just having like a conversation for like 5 minutes maybe. And all of a sudden they're just fucking madly in love with each other. It's like this 5-minute fucking conversation, man. The fuck? This is for you. I really enjoyed, because of course it gets in between of their partnership. And at the very end, you should get a character. He's like, "Hey, I'm really sorry about everything." Da, da, da. He's like, "Are we still partners?" And Glenn Corbin's character just goes, "Nope."
All right, that's the Crimson Kimono from Sam Fuller. The last one that I'll talk about is Wendy. This is Ben Zeitlin's new one. Now, if you remember, Ben Zeitlin did Beasts of the Southern Wild. That was my number one movie for whatever year that came out. 2012, I think.
Yeah.
It's like a long time ago, man. It was a long time ago. This is his much anticipated follow-up, which is sort of a reimagining of Peter Pan. And, when you see the trailer for it, you think to yourself, that looks like a Ben Zeitlin movie for sure. And it very much is. It has that same sort of aesthetic that I really loved in Beasts of the Southern Wild, where it's got this kind of dirty, rural look to it. The visuals were outstanding in this. The music is outstanding. He did the music in it as well, just like Beasts of the Southern Wild. And so I loved all the cinematography. I love the music. The story, like the narrative itself, I thought was a bit lacking. I actually found myself getting bored a few times. So I gotta say I was a little bit disappointed with this overall. I thought that it was okay. You have a cast that's comprised almost entirely of children, and they all did a pretty good job.
Here we go. Oh, okay.
They did a pretty good job. I don't really have anything negative to say about the kids. Like, I
was really hoping, and I was kind of waiting for you to just be like, okay, here's the thing. These fucking kids are garbage.
They weren't amazing, but they weren't horrible like some child actors, and these were mostly like newcomers too. And it was okay. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. Again, the visuals in this are just out of control. So good. They shot this in the Caribbean for the most part. Some of it was shot in Louisiana, but most of it was shot in the Caribbean. And they shot it on this small island. I can't remember the name of the island. I should have looked that up. But the island has an active volcano on it. And apparently shooting there was just really, really treacherous. It was really hard. And it kind of shows, like, it looks like a very rugged, dangerous place. And I think like on a technical level, the movie's incredible. I just think that the plot is a bit lacking. I mean, it follows the Peter Pan story a little bit more closely than I sort of imagined it would. Like, I thought it was going to be just really loose, like just barely anything, maybe have the same themes with, growing up and all of that, but the themes are there big time, but also just like, Captain Hook's in it and stuff like that.
No. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking the super loose interpretation too.
I mean, it's definitely loose, but it's still closer than, maybe it's just that I'm not a huge fan of the Peter Pan story. That could be.
Yeah.
That very well could be that I'm just not a fan of that story overall. But, I would give it a light recommend, especially if you're someone who really loves cinematography, because and especially if you love the cinematography in Beasts of the Southern Wild, because there's a substantial amount of that same aesthetic in this, where everything is just kind of dirty and grungy, and there's like, these really powerful montages where there's people like dancing and running around, and you have that kind of swelling music playing. So that's all in here. But this is on VOD, so you can give this a rental if you're interested. Again, it's Wendy from Ben Zeitlin. That's it. Okay, let's talk about what we have on VOD this week. As usual, we got a number of things coming out. First up, we have Why Don't You Just Die, which is it's a Russian film. I would recommend checking this out. Arrow is actually putting this out. This is a bit of an odd one. It's about this guy who goes to visit his girlfriend's parents, and it turns out that basically he's trying to kill her dad and vice versa. So like the whole movie takes place within the confines of this relatively small apartment, and it's just two people trying to kill each other the whole movie. It's quite interesting, and I would recommend checking that out. On the 21st, we have Time Warp, the greatest cult films of all time. This is just volume 1 that's coming out on the 21st. Then we have Party Hard, Die Young. This is a horror movie that's actually available on Shudder right now. So if you have Shudder, you can watch it right now. If you don't have Shudder, it'll be on VOD platforms on the 21st. We have Himalayan Ice. That is it's a documentary about these guys who are going on an ice climbing expedition in the Himalayas, I guess. On the 22nd, we have Eating Up Easter, which is a documentary. That's a virtual theatrical release about Easter Island and global warming, I believe. Or I should say climate change. On the 22nd, we also have Circus of Books. This is a Netflix documentary. I remember reading about this. This played the festivals, I think, last year, and it's about an older couple who own a gay porn shop.
Okay.
On the 22nd on Netflix, we also have The Willoughbys, which is an animated film. Then on the 24th, we have Breaking for Whales. That sounds like a documentary, but I'm not sure. No, actually, it's not. Charts the unexpected journey of a dysfunctional brother and sister who are forced to come to terms with each other and themselves over their recently deceased mother's final wish. We have To the Stars, One Bedroom, which is a pretty decent horror movie. We have Extraction, that's on Netflix. That's the action movie with Chris Hemsworth. Slightly interested in that. Who's that directed by? Sam Hargrave. Produced by Joan Anthony Russo. Interesting. We also have Robert the Bruce, which sounds like a biopic about Robert the Bruce. Which didn't we just have one of those like a year ago? Maybe.
I'm pretty sure we did.
That was with Chris Pine, right? Wasn't Chris Pine in that one? The other one?
No, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
I can't remember the name of it, but yeah. We have the True History of the Kelly Gang, which is about a band of rebel warriors.
Looks fucking outlaws. That's a Crystal movie.
Yeah, this looks I think it might be good. There's some decent people in this. George McKay, Nicholas Hoult, Charlie Hunnam, Russell Crowe,
Thomasin McKenzie.
Yeah, Thomasin McKenzie. Maybe I'll give that a look. That's about it for VOD. Let's take a look at what we have on Blu-ray this week. We have Bad Boys for Life coming out. I heard decent things about this, but I was never a fan of the Bad Boys movies to begin with, so I skipped it when it came out in theaters. So I'm not sure that I'll get around to this one or not. Yeah, I probably will, considering it's one of like 4 movies that came out in 2020. The Gentleman comes out. That's the Guy Ritchie one. This is another one that I kind of wanted to see, but just never got around to.
Well, I think you got some time.
Yeah. Fatal Attraction from 1987 is coming out on some sort of new Blu-ray. It's a remaster limited edition. Paramount's putting that out.
Yeah, buddy.
We have Ip Man 4, the finale. Will it be the finale, though? Will it really be the finale?
Is it? You don't want to paint yourself in the corner there.
I mean, can you believe these Ip Man movies that there's so it's not really the 4th one. I'm pretty sure there were more than that. Maybe there was like other like rip-off ones or something that came out, but I just feel like there's always one of these Ip Man movies coming out. And they're pretty good. I mean, I saw the first 2, I think, and they were pretty good.
I think I only saw the first one, which was good. But at the same time, I was like, yep, I like that. I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't need 3 more of them.
Right. Yeah, it seemed like it was good enough as is. But here we are. Why Don't You Just Die comes out. That's on Arrow. The Turning from earlier this year comes out. It's a horror movie. Budapest Noir comes out. That's from 2017. That's pretty much it. Yeah, kind of a light week. What about Criterion's this week?
We got one Criterion, and it is something I consider probably like one of the best movies ever made. And that's The Cremator from 1969. The Czech New Wave film.
Yeah, very nice.
Loaded up with special features. And this is also available on the Criterion channel if you have that.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. You can send us your questions and topics to podcast@filmpulse.net. You can follow us on Twitter @filmpulsenet and @filmpulsekevin. And if you have a minute, consider reviewing us on your podcast platform of choice. For Kevin Rakestraw, my name's Adam Patterson. We'll see you next week.